How's everybody doing? It's been a while. I've been out of town for a couple weeks, and it seems like the son's been doing better racing without me. Got a couple first round wins under his belt, which is great. I got a lot to do this weekend, and I'm going to show you some stuff on the my 2015 Escape. We're going to do some maintenance on that. But UPS guy just showed up. Let's see what he brought. So we can do this. Okay, it was easier to put down the camera. So for the duster, we got some new valve springs. I think that's my issue. Why we're losing some power on the top end, not revving out, and missing on cylinder number 5. Also got some rear shock mounts, so we can fabricate that and get it correct. And some header gaskets. I've never tried these. Dead soft aluminum, reusable, and we'll give that a shot. We got a bad header leak, and see if this will help. So these springs are a single spring with a damper, and these are the exact replacements of what came on these Edelbrock heads when I got them. They match the cam just fine, and we're going to do a little video on how we're going to replace those, but that'll be later. So what we have is a 2015 Escape all-wheel drive 2-liter titanium with the EcoBoost, and we're going to change oil. We are going to change the power takeoff units, the PTU, which is the all-wheel drive center differential. I'll show you how that's done, and the transmission fluid. I did this when I got the car and one time in between, so it's been about 25,000 miles since I've done this, so I take care of it. So I'm going to show you what the tricky parts are. The hard part about the transmission fluid is there's no dipstick. It's really not that big of a deal once I show you how. And where do you put the fluid in? That's hard to find. Let's see if we can find it. It's buried. There's a cap right in here. So I'm going to go ahead and shut the camera off. I'm going to stick a funnel in it and then you'll see where it's going. Okay, so this is the cap. We'll clean it before we put it back on when we're done. And the funnel is going into the transmission filler. So we'll lift this up and I'll show you where the drain is. And there's no filter to change on this. It's integral. You have to split the case like a motorcycle, so it's not meant to be changed. All the more reason why you want to change your fluid every 30,000 miles. So I'm going to get this thing up in the air and we'll take a look from underneath. Okay, to do this job, you're never going to get all the fluid out in one change, so you only need 5 quarts. Mercon LV, that's very specific, and this LV expands a lot. That's why they use a system. They don't use they use a side plug. They don't use a dipstick. It's not necessarily that bad, not hard to do. So we get 5 quarts of Mercon LV. The drain plug on the transmission is 11 millimeter, and the sight plug, if you can see that, you get a flashlight on it. I already put a 10 millimeter Allen socket in there, and we'll pull that out later. Show you what we need to do. So we'll drain the fluid. You dump 4 quarts in, leave the sight plug in, you bring it up to operating temperature of 185 degrees, and I use a thermal laser, hit the pan, get the pan about 175, the fluid in it's about 185. I figured that out, trial and error. And then you can top it off, about another half quart maybe, and it starts pouring out the sight plug. It's got to be level while you do it. It's got to be running, and it's not that hard, except it's tight quarters and you get the joy of burning your hand sometimes. It's pretty tight in there. So we'll go ahead and drop the fluid, see if I can do this one-handed. See what it looks like coming out. So a little dark, doesn't really look that bad. So I get a flashlight on that. This will be my 3rd oil change in this in 45,000 miles. I got it with 60,000 miles. I changed it right away. and we have 105,000 miles on it. And I did it last fall as well, probably in the 90,000 mark. So I'll go ahead and let that finish, and I'll get back to you. While the oil's draining, let's look at this oil a little bit, some better light. It's pretty red. I had a 2013 Escape with 100,000 miles on it, and I purchased it that old, and fluid was never changed, and it came out black, like very dirty oil. And it took 3 changes before it even looked like this. So this is pretty clean for 105,000 miles. Pretty happy with this, and it's so easy to change. We're going to go ahead and keep changing it every 30,000 or so. Okay, back on the ground, we'll go ahead and pour 4 quarts of oil in it. See how red that is? It's nice. Let that drain. I don't think you need to watch me put all 4 in. I'll shut her off and turn it back on and take a road test. Okay, we're going to take it out for an easy drive. I got an ODB2 sensor, and it's telling me I'm up to temperature, 185 degrees. This thing runs between there and close to 200. We're just going to take it for an easy drive, make sure it shifts okay, and then we'll get her on the rack, raise it up, and then we'll check our level. And I'm going to put the phone down while I drive. We'll see you when we're back up on the rack. Thanks. Okay, took it to town, drove it nice and easy, seemed to shift great. I'll go ahead and get the funnel back in. So that's kind of the worst part of it. Those are heater hoses. I'm going to be burning my fingers on trying to get the funnel back in. It's probably the worst part of this whole thing. So I'll put the camera down while I do that. Well, not too bad if you're using mechanics gloves. Should have thought of that sooner. Put this thing up in the air. Okay, checking the transmission case. The case is 187 degrees. I know this transmission and its fluid are up to temperature. Now, some people say just measure what you took out. That's just not a good idea. This fluid expands a lot. It's important to get it right. So we're going to go ahead and pull. I've got it idling at neutral. It's up to temperature. See if I can do this one-handed. Okay, I got the side plug out. You can see the plug is out and the floor. Now I'm going to pour a little bit of fluid in and hopefully I catch it in the pan. Looking at the last empty quart I had, I took 4 3/4 quarts. So I'm going to dump this in and see if anything comes out. Nothing yet. There it goes. See it just dripping out. If you were to shut the engine off, a lot more to come out. So you got to do it while it's running. I've got it in neutral. Park and brake is on. I'm going to let that drip till it levels out. So the next thing we're going to do is change the oil in the PTU, which is the power takeoff unit, which is your all-wheel drive center differential. And it's wrapped, got the exhaust running by it, and a lot of heat in this area, and it only holds about a half a quart. So pretty important to change. You can see I've got the T50 socket in there. And the important thing on this is get the filler plug out first, because it's in there tight, and if you can't get that out and you've drained your fluid, you've got a lot of problems. So get the filler plug out first before you drain the fluid. The charge pipe might be in your way, and I think that was the start of my problems earlier. I took the charge pipe apart the first time and did not get it back together correctly. It's back together good now, and we won't have any more trouble with it. So we'll get in there, we'll get the filler plug out, and then drain this thing. Okay, I got the fill plug out, and let me correct myself. That is a T50 Torx, and it's a T50 taking the oil out as well. So we'll do that next. That's coming out nice and clear. You can see that. It's because I change it. If you don't, it will cook and turn black. Again, cheap insurance. It's half a quart. So 1 quart bottle, you can change this thing twice. Okay, I'm going to use full synthetic 75-140 oil. Check your manual. Make sure that's correct for your vehicle. I believe it's correct for mine. You got to use a pump. This is a $12 pump you can get at any parts store. Just drop that in, screw it down. Hard to do with one hand. Still got to get the drain plug back in, and then I'll go to the fill plug. I'll put about half a quart in. It'll start coming out, dribble out the top, and then I'll put the plug back in, and then we're done. So for 12 bucks for the tool, and I don't know, a quart of this is what, 10 bucks? Again, peace of mind. One more thing I didn't show you. There is a magnet on the drain plug, and you can see just a little bit. It catches all that. And this will be the third or fourth time I've changed this. First time was pretty bad from all the break-in, and after that it's just very little bit. That's really not much at all. So I want to put a little bit of sealant on the threads. There's the oil filter. This car is one of the easier ones to change the oil on. Go ahead and I'm going to drop the plug. There's the filter. I use a Wix XP. I use a full synthetic 530 on this vehicle. It holds 5.7 quarts. So we'll go ahead and drain the oil. I drive a lot of miles, 90 miles a day, so I'm always changing the oil. Go 5,000 miles on an oil change. I feel like I'm gonna hit the floor with this. Got it. Filter, get the oil changed, go around and a little brake cleaner and clean everything up, make sure all the plugs are back in, everything's good. And one other thing I want to point out on this car, this is turbocharged. That's your charge pipe, and for whatever reason this one keeps coming loose on me. It's blown off. Hard to see. It's blown apart twice. And now that I got a lift and I get under here and get a good look at it, I'm going to find out what's going on. It's kind of annoying. Okay, after a closer inspection of that charge pipe, it was really a matter of just getting both hands on and pushing it together. I think laying on the floor, changing the oil before I had the lift is why I continue to have a problem with it. I'm not sure how it ever came loose in the first place, but put a 7mm socket on it. I don't think it's going anywhere now. Took the filter off, the oil's drained, the plug's back in it. We're going to use a Wix XP filter. It's the only filters I use. They seem to work really well. And you ever watch a video of them cutting open filters, you'll know why you can use a Wix. And also Napa Gold is really good too. Waiting on some brake cleaner. Wife went out to get me a few cans, and I'll clean up the mess under here. And we'll get some oil in this thing. Okay, I got the filter changed out, and we're getting close to the end here. I'm going to put some oil in it. I'm using Parts Masters Full Synthetic 530. That's the weight this engine calls for. This motor oil is developed by Valvoline. There's very few actual manufacturers of oil. Don't fall for all the marketing. If it meets the API ratings for your engine, the numbers are right there. Look in your manual. If it meets it, it's good enough. Where you don't want to cheap out is a filter. That Wix XP is a $12 filter. You can buy a $3 filter, but that's not the place to save your money. This is full synthetic oil. I change it every 5,000 miles. I've been using it in all my cars for as long as I can remember. Ashland Oil makes most of the oils. This Valvoline. So Mobil 1 may be a little better. Don't know, but don't fall for the marketing. This is good stuff. We'll dump this in. This takes 5.7 quarts. Okay, the oil's in. I got to put it back up in the air. Wife brought back some brake cleaner and beer, so that's great. Didn't even ask. That's the cover. That goes underneath. We'll clean up. And one last task for tonight. I did buy some brake rotors and pads. I'm going to rotate the tires. We'll inspect the brakes, see what they look like. The back rotors don't look the greatest. So we'll go ahead and change the back brakes. Let's get this thing up in the air. Yeah, I love this Max Jacks. It really helps me get a lot done. I'm really enjoying using it. But what is really annoying, sorry about the noise, that fitting leaks. That's a factory installed fitting. It's very tight. I haven't taken the time to take it out. And that's the last leak I've got to deal with. So, leave that for another day. I'll keep wiping it up. Other than that, this thing is great. Highly recommended now. It's a little tricky to install. Watch that video. You can see I got to do a couple things over and over on it, but very happy with it. So I'm going to go ahead and clean up, install the cover, and then we'll start looking at the brakes. Okay, after 104,000 miles, almost 105,000, pads are very thin, so I ordered new pads and rotors. We're going to change those out for the back. And the front look pretty thin too. I couldn't pick them up. They're a little bit better. I couldn't pick them up because they come in two sizes, 300 millimeter and 320 millimeter, so I need to measure. And then I'll get them ordered. I think I'm going to change the fronts as well. So these wheels, these are Motegi racing wheels. I got them from Tire Rack. Pretty inexpensive. These are 17s. I took the heavy, very heavy 19s off and saved 10 pounds a corner. And I'm not giving up anything as far as performance. Got a BF Goodrich G-Force Comp 2. Directional. These things did really well last winter. I'm very surprised. Good tire, and they weren't too expensive. It was almost cheaper to buy the wheels and tires than to replace the 19s, and the 19-inch wheels were very beat up. They stuck out, and so they were curbed by the previous owner, and looked really bad. So we'll go ahead and change these brakes out, at least on the back, and see what we got. Okay, to get the calipers off, you've got these little covers that come off top and bottom, and it's a 7mm Allen. So I'll go ahead and pull the calipers off and we'll look at the parts. Okay, we got the parts out. In addition to that 7mm Allen, you will need a 13mm wrench to remove the adapter. And I'm going to clean this up with a brass wire brush because the pads slide on these surfaces, and as dirty as it is, that'll cause a problem. Clean that up. These These are better original to the vehicle. I never changed the brakes. I've had it for 45,000 miles. I got it with 60, like I said, about 105 now. So got a new set of pads, much thicker. Got new rotors too. We'll get rid of these off to the scrap pile. You've got a retaining spring you have to remove as well. So I'm gonna do a little cleanup. Clean the new rotors with some brake cleaner, degrease them, and reverse the assembly. Okay, I've cleaned up the caliper adapter with the wire brush, and what I want to show you is the brake pads. This is the old pad. They slide on these pads right here, and so you want to use a little bit of brake caliper grease, not too much on that to keep them from jamming up. The other thing we got to do, we got to run the piston back in, and there's a tool you can buy, or you can cheat. I'm going to use some good needle nose pliers and push and turn them clockwise and run those pistons back in so we can get the new pads in. I got to do a little cleanup on the hub here, and I'll probably put a little bit of anti-seize around the hub to keep it from locking in. I didn't have any trouble getting the brake rotor off. It came off pretty easy. So I'm going to go ahead and assemble everything and show you when I'm done. Another tip is to not take apart the other side, so you can reference it if you need to understand how things go back together. Okay, so we got the pads installed. We're complete on this side. You see, nice and new, nice thick pads. Everything went together really smooth. Got to do the other side yet, and I got to take the front apart, and I got to order parts, and we'll finish that Monday. Get this done today, and the next thing I got to do, and I'm not going to put it on camera, I got to change the oil in the F-150. Got 35,000 miles on it. Time for an oil change. And I'm going to wrap up this video. If you're still watching, boy, thanks a lot, and hope you got something informative out of this. And we'll see you next time. Thanks a lot.